recommendation to me. And then we would take that to the, I would take that to the Board of Trustees.
Here's the answer. Okay. If you'd like, I can share the screen. I'm reading from the governance, the Brooklyn College governance plan. It says, this is in Article 1, Section A, Part 5. Each constituency, administrators, faculty, students
It's in the chat.
What?
It's in the chat, did you? I think
Okay.
Tammy put that in the chat, that provision that you're citing.
Shall choose 3 alternates to serve at voice and voice any meeting absence of their respective meeting. But that means that they have to be chosen ahead of time. It does not mean I couldn't come and I'm sending someone in their place. That's not what that means. It means that there's a slate originally with alternates, and the alternates are officially can vote when the primary is not available.
So which of the alternates were voted upon, Zunera?
Faculty alternates were voted on. Students submitted their alts.
Okay, and the administration.
The student alternates were voted on in the Senate.
In the student Senate.
Yeah.
But not
Yes.
at Policy Council.
Yeah, and that's the same way that any other member gets approved.
Yeah, to my understanding, it doesn't get approved by Policy Council, the members. It gets approved by the own body. So as the students get approved through a joint resolution through the Senate and Cabinet. We have approved, we have the 12 students who were approved with GSO. So GSO has 3, USG has 9. We did submit 2 alternates at the time, and we are allowed up to 3. Since GSO has not submitted an alternate, we decided to go with USG submitting a 3rd alternate.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, on my list, I do have 3 alternates for you. Anna,
Well-
Amina, and Yisrael.
So when was Anne submitted as an alternate? We didn't get that on the list of the.
Oh, yeah, that was after the first meeting that was submitted, and I believe you were CC'd on it.
Okay, so I guess the last alternate, Robert, would be at the moment suspended because we can't pass the 4.
Yeah, I agree with Aaron that the individual groups appoint their alternates just as faculty vote their alternates, but it's not ad hoc. It doesn't mean that someone today doesn't show up and then all of a sudden we put someone else in their place. Approved alternate.
I think we might have lost you briefly. Did you? Or maybe you guys lost me. Did you all lose?
I'll say it
Briefly?
Okay, so I'll repeat myself. I agree with Aaron that each of the individual bodies, okay, appoints alternates in the manner they see fit, just like faculty elected a series of alternates. But these are not ad hoc alternates. In other words, it doesn't mean that someone doesn't show up one day and all of a sudden I raise my hand as a faculty member. Oh, I'm sending another faculty member in their place. Okay, these have to be the officially designated alternates that were put to the Policy Council ahead of time in the minutes, as Zunera points out. If one of those,
what we will do as a result of this is that we will have those alternates who have been in the minutes submitted ahead of time. They will be voting members of the body, and the others will not be. And I think the administration probably needs to submit 3 alternates ahead of time and get those voted on, and that's fine. Other questions or comments? Okay, let's move forward on the, Aaron.
Just a quick question to the body. Would it be okay then if Robert, for example, participated without voice and vote until we clarify what exactly happened? Because based on my conversation with Lou, an hour ago, we didn't have a GSO alternate, but now we do have.
I don't have an objection to that. Does anyone on the body have an objection?
Just in terms of how we would then list the person and accepting them into the Zoom, because right now in the Zoom, it's folks that are Policy Council members. And if there's someone presenting, that's how I have them as non-voting. And if it's someone that's not usually a member, I put that they're on alternate next to their name.
I see. So Zunera, you think that we should probably let both Todd and Robert go?
Right, not have them as members, but I know Todd is presenting, I believe so.
No, actually, I am, and he can watch the Zoom. It's fine.
Can
Todd,
can I ask on this, Todd, on Todd specifically, how are how are administrative members chosen?
David, it's beyond the scope of what we're talking about. The constituency chooses and then submits. It gets on the minutes, and then that's the way it proceeds. We confer and make a decision about it.
I'm saying I'm of the understanding that the alternates are chosen the same way the regular members are chosen. For students, that's appointment by the president and approval by the legislator. Faculty, I would assume it's something similar to that, approval by the faculty council. And administrators, I would assume it's appointment by you. If that's the case, they could be appointed at any time.
Well, the challenge is that I think a number of people on the Zoom believe that this needs to be in the minutes and documented beforehand. So we have a very tight schedule today. It's 5:11, and this is a procedural nicety that actually is going to have no substantive import in terms of the work that we do today. So I'm inclined to allow these folks to stay without voice and vote for this particular meeting. And then we will not do that again. We will get folks in the minutes ahead of time, and they will be the formal alternates. Are there any objections to that decision? All right, we're going to move on, and I will welcome folks to the Policy Council meeting of November 2021. I'm going to begin, as I mentioned that I would last time, with a little bit more substantive comments than I've had before. I want to welcome people, but I also want to give remarks to the Policy Council on matters of general import to the students, the faculty, and the administration. I have a hard stop at 6 p.m. and we've got a lot to cover, so I would appreciate cooperation in helping us to move the agenda forward. First, I want to touch base on vaccination and campus entry. Students who are verified as fully vaccinated may enter the campus. Students with no record of vaccination in CUNY First can no longer test, and they can no longer enter campus, except for a couple of very exceptional circumstances, like getting to the food pantry in conditions of an emergency. Students with full shots, but they are not past the 14 days post-shots, cannot test and cannot enter the campus. This was something that was clarified, Alan, today at the Council of Presidents meeting. Students with one shot in a two-shot sequence cannot test or enter the campus until they're fully vaccinated, that is, have the second shot and been through the 14 days. So those are the parameters that we're working with. The campus does not have unvaccinated students on it and will not have unvaccinated students on it, except those who have religious or medical exemptions that have been approved. There is an administrative withdrawal policy that I want to touch base with you on. CUNY's has issued an administrative withdrawal policy for those students who remain unvaccinated and who have in-person or hybrid courses. The imposition of these WA grades, I think they might be WU, I'm not sure what they show up on the transcript like, but we've been talking about them as WA grades. This was on hold for a number of weeks as the central office worked out the details of how to offer students who had paid out of pocket a refund for the classes where they got a WA. They had that policy worked out and approved as of the CUNY Board of Trustees meeting on October 18th. Thereafter, they asked the administration of the colleges to move forward with unvaccinated students in in-person classes and asked us to issue WA grades for them for their in-person classes. Throughout this process, even through several deadlines that I know all of us are aware of, having come and gone, including October 18th, which was the Board of Trustees moment, we have done outreach through social media, through CUNY alerts and repeated emails from faculty to their own classes and from administrators to the full community. We've also done individual outreach to students through texts and personal phone calls. We have checked and double checked and triple checked our lists because we do not want to issue any WAs to any student who it is inappropriate to issue a WA to them. We've also encouraged, cajoled, pleaded with students personally who have not yet been confirmed as fully vaccinated. Our original list was 148 students who were not verified as fully vaccinated in CUNY First, who were taking in-person classes. Of those, we have issued WA grades to 58 students for their in-person classes, not for all of their classes, but for their in-person classes. We have also, through careful assessment of the list and repeated individual outreach and personal pleading, we have also saved 75 of those students from WA grades. There are about 15 people that we're still trying to resolve what's happening, and we're following up with them. Moving forward, we will go more slowly with unvaccinated students in hybrid courses because they are all over the map in terms of when they need to be vaccinated, when their course is going to be on campus, et cetera. Again, but please note, unless they have an authorized medical or religious exemption, unvaccinated students cannot enter campus. They are not on campus and they pose no threat to others on the campus. Last thing I wanted to mention is that vaccination will not be required before registering for a class for the spring semester. However, students have to upload full vaccination documents 10 days before classes start. By my calculation, classes start on January 28th. And so that means on January 18th, students who are planning to take in-person or hybrid courses in the spring semester, which will be almost all students, because we are only going to offer about 30% of our classes in online format, students will have to submit evidence of full vaccination. So for those students who are still unvaccinated, it is past time. It is time. Please get vaccinated. For those faculty and staff who have not been vaccinated, please get vaccinated. Do we have questions on any of that very briefly before I turn to a presentation on enrollment? Yes, Mobina?
Is it possible to change the deadline to more than 10 days before classes start? Because there's always folks who fall through the cracks. There's always people who don't understand what full vaccination means. Those kinds of things. Is it possible to move it a little bit further back?
Yeah, we talked about that this morning at the Council of Presidents meeting, and this is a policy that's developed by CUNY. They've made a calculation. If it's too early, they believe it deters students from enrolling who are on the fence. If it's too late, we get all bollocksed up in the ways that you've suggested, Mobina, about how do they understand, what can they do? Rest assured, we're going to continue to do outreach to the hybrid students right now who don't have evidence of full vaccination in CUNY First. We're going to continue to do outreach generally to our students who are in online classes that it is time to be vaccinated. You're not going to be able to be employed in New York City or the state in most employment opportunities without being vaccinated. So we want our students to successfully go through CUNY and graduate and get great jobs, and they need to be vaccinated to do so. Any other questions about this? Yes, David?
If I recall correctly, last meeting, there was talks about students who tried to ask their professors if there's the ability to take an in-person final online. Professors have told the students, the chairs have told them that they can't. Chairs said that it was the departments, and departments said it was the provost. Do we have any guidance on who it was that made the final decision and if that's going to change?
Yeah, it was the CUNY Central office. So we can kind of go up the food chain. CUNY Central has made it absolutely crystal clear to us that at this point, we cannot have individual faculty individually negotiating with students to circumvent the vaccination mandate. And so it was not a decision made at this campus. It was made CUNY-wide. Other questions?
Yeah, and students who come in contact with somebody with COVID or test positive for COVID during the week of the finals, are they going to have the ability to take their tests afterwards? Are they going to have another option for their finals?
Yeah, that's a medical question that comes up all the time. Students are not available for their final exam for whatever medical reason, and I'm sure it'll be treated like other medical issues that arise during final exams. Aaron?
A quick question regarding the faculty discretion about exams. So even if it's not related directly to vaccination, I was told by several faculty actually that they were trying to change their the mode of their exams from in-person to online in order to get extra classes in. So for example, with a personal class that I'm taking, the professor wanted to have an extra in-person class. And since the exam is with open notes and that would be only applicable if people use computers. Now they have to search for a in-person lab to possibly do it instead of being able to schedule it online as they wanted to do and intended to do regardless of the vaccination. They were told by the chair of the department that it would have to go through the provost. And the provost
I'm already confused by the example, and I'm not, and what I'd like to do is to talk with you offline about it. It sounds like it's a pretty specific circumstance, and I want to attend to it. But in general, what's happening is that faculty are trying to, a few faculty are trying to figure out ways to provide opportunities for their students to remain unvaccinated. That is verboten. Where faculty want to do other things that are pedagogically appropriate, let's talk about that, okay? If it's not designed to get around the vaccination mandate. Emmanuel Valdez.
Thank you, President. I understand that students will be refunded their courses if they're unvaccinated. Considering that unvaccinated students will still be residents of the college, they'll still be taking courses, just not in-person courses, and vaccinated students pretty much the same. Hold on, let me get it together. Will they also be refunded their student activity fees or tech fees, considering they'll have access to different resources?
Excellent question. I don't know the answer to that, Emmanuel. The details of the refunding policy we're just sort of figuring out now. When we have clearer understanding of how that process works and what the scope of the refund will be and who, it's not going to be an automatic for all students. It's for those students who laid out certain amounts of money out of pocket. We will issue a statement on kind of that level of detail, but as of right now, I don't have that information in front of me. Ron Jackson.
Just real quickly, if any student tests positive for COVID at any time, please direct the student to me and I'll work with the student and the faculty member to get them whatever accommodation they may need. Absolutely. And that's a really important point. We want to encourage people to report when they are feeling bad generally, and when they have COVID, when they test positive for COVID. We have very detailed contact tracing protocols that we follow carefully on campus. And the good news is that through universal masking, a high vaccination rate, and careful contact tracing protocols, we don't have any evidence of transmission on campus, despite the fact that, as you might expect, in any Brooklyn community, we have had people who are COVID positive on campus at different times, but we have protected the community together and collectively by taking seriously the need for vaccinations and masking. Doug?
Yeah, I'm sorry to ask one more question on this, but for the spring, will there still be social distancing? And if there is, how can we accommodate 70% of the classes in person?
There are no social distancing mandates for classrooms and other parts of city operations, either by the CDC or by the city or by CUNY in terms of classroom spaces. So although we definitely want folks who remain unvaccinated, that is, who have religious or medical exemptions, to remain to be as socially distanced as possible, students who are vaccinated and who are masked do not need to be socially distanced. And that's the overwhelming majority of students who are in on the campus and will be on the campus in the spring. David? David, no one can hear you.
Sorry. building on that, are we going to see the remaining facilities and the bathrooms that are currently closed for social distancing? Are those going to reopen?
I'm not sure. Some of them are, Alan, Alan's nodding.
Yes. I'm on mute. Yes, they will be. All spaces will be open.
All right. Emmanuel, briefly, you've got the last word. We need to move on.
Thanks. Any idea how much longer any idea how much longer we'll have to mask up for?
As long as the pandemic lasts, if it's up to me.
Oh boy.
This is a very serious situation. And it is our job to protect the health and safety of folks on our campus. And in so doing, we have protected against transmission on our campus. As long as the CDC recommends it, CUNY is going to mandate it. And I certainly will too. Sarah Lee.
Sorry, I know you want to move on. Just one more question. I know that last time you mentioned, I know that currently all students have to be vaccinated to be on campus and faculty does not. I just want to know what's the word on that, because I know it's different because it's unionized.
Yeah, it's a really good question, Sarah Lee. And we've spent a lot of time trying to predict. I'm just going to tell you a couple of the factors that are going into the mix, okay? We have city mandates for city employees. Query whether or not that applies to CUNY. Right now, the city is swamped with many other things and has not clarified that directive. We have a federal mandate from President Biden for all entities that engage in federal contracts and those who come in contact with people who engage in federal contracts to be vaccinated. Query whether or not that applies to CUNY. The state has not made a determination on that. And these two overlapping, sort of a Venn diagram, possible coverage of CUNY could change at any moment. The deadline for the federal vaccination is early in December. I'm thinking the 8th, but I'm not sure that that's the right date. It's early in December. What's clear is that the university wants to make a decision on that and wants to figure out how the city mandates, which may only apply to community colleges, may apply to senior colleges, and the federal mandates, which certainly apply to research institutions like, or it could be interpreted to apply to the research that happens here at CUNY. There is going to be guidance issued. Guidance will be forthcoming on that question. The decision will be made at a pay grade much higher than mine. It's not the union. That's right. Good point, Mobina. The union is actually the PSC, one of the largest unions, obviously, has indicated it's not opposed at all, would like to negotiate the terms of how that's rolled out, but they've made clear on their own website that they're not opposed. And so we're all hoping for a safe campus. We're all hoping for a safe campus, and we have one right now. We're hoping that spring brings that as well. All right, I'm going to give some information about enrollment, in part because it's such an important strategic priority for us, and in part because I'd like to mobilize some of the pre-existing structures here at Policy Council, as a governance body, to know about this and to engage in a productive way. I'm going to share my screen. So this is about enrollment, and here we are. For the fall semester, I just want to share with you that our overall enrollment is down 10%, which is a pretty large number for a one-year drop. First-time, full-time undergraduates are down 26%, new transfers 20%, new graduate students themselves are up 14%, but when you look at continuing graduate students, they're down 16%, and our ability to retain continuing students during the pandemic has dropped overall 5% over a course of 1 year. These numbers are going to impact us for many years to come because the cohort of students that have been admitted then works its way through 4 to 6 years usually in terms of graduation. All right, so how do I move this forward? There we go. Here are some trends for first-time full-time students. These are students entering their first year at the college. You can see over the last 5 years, we've had a dramatic drop from fall 20 to fall 21. If we look at transfer students, we've had a pretty slow progression from fall 2018 down to 21, right about here between 18 and 19. By the way, can you see my little cursor moving around? Yeah, right about here between 18 and 19, we started to have public tools available to students to understand how their transfer credits, how their credits at community college would transfer to senior colleges. I'll talk more about that later. What are the reasons for the decline? Well, across the country, we've had some drop in enrollments. COVID itself has meant international students have dropped for sure. COVID has presented serious mental health, has presented serious fiscal challenges for families and for individuals, mental health challenges. Here in New York City, we've got fewer high school graduates simply due to demographic shifts over time. And of those fewer high school graduates, fewer are going to college. Kingsborough Community College is our largest feeder school, and its enrollment over the past couple of years has declined about 20%. And community college students, as I said, now have tools to compare how many credits, how their own credits as community college students will transfer to different senior colleges and compare those numbers. Brooklyn College does not grant as much major credit for community college classes as do other senior colleges. We also have a reputational challenge. We've done some surveys of students. What we hear is the idea of the BC runaround. I am sent to one office that is then sent to another office and then sent to another office, and no one can seem to answer my questions or help me. This concern about not getting credit in the major for community college classes that they would get credit at Baruch for instance, not getting the classes they need to graduate. We often hear that as a concern. And then this sort of overall concern of not caring about students. This is really hard to hear, and it doesn't even need to be accurate. This is a perception that students have, that some students have, and when some students have it, it can really spread. So there is a traction of negative interactions. If someone gets the BC runaround at different offices, they can feel very disheartened and tell people about it, and then that becomes part of the narrative. And then there is a lag with our reputation in terms of how long we have to live with the negative consequences of the challenging reputation we have. If you compare Brooklyn College to other CUNY campuses, overall CUNY enrollment is down about 7%. We're down about and that's 7% in entering students, not in overall seat count. We're down considerably further than that in entering students. Brooklyn College has the largest enrollment drop across senior colleges, and of course, the largest revenue drop associated with it. Brooklyn College, unfortunately, also has the lowest yield. And what yield means is we grant an acceptance. Somebody applies to the college, we accept them to the college, and only 14% of those students agree to come to Brooklyn College. If you compare that to Baruch, Hunter, John Jay, or Queens, we're considerably lower. In the future, if you look at high school graduates across New York, what you're seeing is we've had an up and down around 210,000. And then we start to drop, we'll go up for a few years, but then we've got a pretty dramatic drop. This is based on how many folks are in the New York City middle schools, primary schools, and birth rates that we're seeing right now. So what are we doing? How are we addressing the challenge? Well, we're trying to improve the website. We're trying to improve our recruitment materials and the scholarships that we can offer students to try to help recruit them to the college. We're also developing a comprehensive enrollment plan with this SEM Works. It's a consultant that's done work with more than 500 colleges, including publics, including HBCUs and other colleges. That work is being funded by the Brooklyn College Foundation, so it's not coming out of our tax levy dollars. And we're also trying to enact positive cultural change and focus on students' needs to become more responsive and kind to students wherever we can. There are lots of examples that we're grappling with and considering to try to grow enrollment. Obviously, improving student retention, making it so that students can continue through Brooklyn College and graduate rather than drop out at some point, enhancing our yield of admitted students, diversifying the mix of our enrolled students, investing in new students, for instance, investing when it's possible post-pandemic, the international market again, new graduate students, adult learners, addressing the many transfer issues that we have that students face, and possibly expanding to new geographic areas. These are just a few. I just wanted to give you a sense of what this might look like. And we have a set of 4 teams that's going to help us try to move forward. Enrollment growth and diversification team, which is going to look at, do a very quick but deep dive in new students and possible programs, looking at the transfer credit issue and class availability for students. We have a strategic enrollment intelligence team, which is going to try to ask ourselves, what are the critical research questions we need to understand and have data on in order to solve our enrollment challenges? How can we assess performance metrics for success? And how can we engage in more sophisticated data analysis, data analytics to predict the classes that students need and provide those classes for them? We have a student success team, which is focusing on advisement, trying to support the students who are in academic probation and the attrition that they face and the retention of continuing students. And then the last one is the student-centered college team that's focusing on the reputation of the college, the morale of staff, faculty, and students, and the promise of the student experience. In other words, we say in our materials, we give you a caring environment. We need to deliver on that promise. And we want to have a team try to focus on that. These teams are a way to move the work forward. They're going to coordinate within the existing structures of policy council, faculty council, CAP, et cetera, for intelligence and strategizing to make recommendations overall to the college governance bodies as change unfolds. And we're seeking your help. You may wish to volunteer for one of those teams and help us with the intensive work that's happening over the next 4 to 6 weeks. But even if you're not going to be involved in the depth of that work, I would ask you to help curb the runaround. Help students here navigate the bureaucracy and break down the silos between different departments. When a student asks who can solve their problem and it's not you, we're pulling together, and Zunera will circulate to the full policy council late this week or early next week, a list of concerns students have and who specifically to send them to, so that we really get, instead of just send you to a department, let's send them to a person and give them a way to contact that person. We're also trying to enhance the ethic of care toward our students, returning students' emails and calls promptly, enhance our service and kindness toward them, and deliver on the promise of care to our students. We are all in this together, trying to make this college a better place. So one of the things that I wanted to mention is that already there has been considerable dialogue at the committee level here on Policy Council with a number of these issues, particularly around reputation. I think that it would be good for all the committees in this next month when they are deliberating to talk about, in particular, the reputation issue for the college, and suggesting there's sort of 2 parts of that. One is understanding the problem, and the other is proposing solutions. I think we have a pretty good handle on the problem, but there may be additional ways we need to understand it. But we also want to really focus on providing solutions and ways to enhance our reputation, as well as the morale of faculty, students, and staff here at the college. Open to questions or comments on that. Aaron?
So inside the PowerPoint, I've seen that these 4 teams that we're talking about will address existing structures in Policy Council and Faculty Council. Will they also deliberate with USG?
Absolutely. You are absolutely part of this. And we'd like you to be a part of, in particular, Aaron, you and your team have been fantastic about doing outreach and being interested in doing outreach as ambassadors COVID ambassador, not ambassadors for COVID, but gate ambassadors for the college. So absolutely, we consider student government a structure that we want to work with. And I apologize for not putting it on the slide.
Oh, good. And another quick thing, you said that Zunera will be sending out information about who to reach out to, which department. I know I made a quick recommendation. I would like to make it again. In student government, we have 8 people who are a part of the cabinet. Each one has his role. David is the treasurer, for example. People need to reach out to him for stuff related to money. But we did notice that when we have 8 emails up there, people are just going to give up, and or everybody's going to send to USG president, or nobody's going to send any email. And what we did in order to fix that problem is we made one main email, support@bcstudentgov.org, and we have one person assigning it. Our press director comes and says, hey, this is related to the club director, let's assign it to them. We do think that if Brooklyn College would make a similar kind of like thing, a similar email, support@brooklyn.cuny.edu, and have a team that assigns it to the correct person immediately, that would be very helpful.
Yep. So we're doing that with the new website rollout, Aaron. It's something that we need to have, and it's important. I will say that the report a problem piece on the returning safely together part of our website is reviewed regularly and immediately responded to. But until we get that part of the new website, that chat function and the ability to submit a question or a comment, that's one way we can get some immediate response. Emmanuel? By the way, I'm so sorry. Aaron, if you want to review the list, and add student government connections, please do. You can talk to Zunera about that. Emmanuel?
Yeah. Will the recreational room be accessible next semester? Like, for example, the pool? I think that might provide immediate relief.
I think for swimmers, it would. I don't know whether or not it's going to be. Alan, you want to touch base on that?
Sure. The Reentry Review Board meets weekly. We are reviewing all the situations and status constantly. It is our hope that we could open up all facilities, but it'll be based on the positivity rates both in the borough and on the campus. But we are very hopeful that that's a reality.
If folks want to volunteer for a team, you should send your name to Zunera. Zunera.ahmed@brooklyn.cuny.edu. Jennifer.
Yeah, hi, sorry. Just a couple of comments as someone who's been an advisor for 20 years and really cares about the students getting what they need. One of the issues is that, as you said, nobody knows where to send students when they have particular problems. It's almost like being in a detective novel or a forensic show. You're trying to figure out exactly who to go to. And someone mentioned a FAQ. We have beautiful facts on our biology website and wonderful flowcharts. Nobody reads them. Students look at videos. It'd be great if we had something like, if this is your problem, then go to X.
Yeah, we're getting that together. And that's exactly what we're going to circulate.
Yeah, because
not a
faculty
video,
need that too. We don't want to send students on the runaround at all.
No, we're going to send it to faculty. We're going to send it to staff. We'll send it to the student government. It really needs to be widely dispersed, Jennifer. And I think you're right. How to frame the information. First of all, just getting the information so there's one person instead of just, the thing that drives me bananas is generic emails. I appreciate the generic email that Aaron just talked about for the student government, but when it doesn't have a name associated with it, people feel like they're typing into the void. And they feel like, how am I ever going to get my concern addressed? They don't really care about me. When we have a phone number, when we have a individual name and individual email, not a generic one, it really, I hope, changes the way students feel in terms of the concern, particularly when people respond quickly.
And just one last thing, I don't know if this is possible, but it would be great if we had a couple of humans, maybe over in West Quad or in Cass, who their only job is to know where to send you. And that is their job. Because students don't even know who to ask, faculty don't need to ask, but if you have a go-to person over in West Quad and you say, I have this problem, where do I go? And they're the experts, I think that would really cut down on the runaround because we're trying to help, but we send them to the wrong places. So,
yep.
hey, students, we care. We don't want to give you the runaround.
Right. Super important suggestion. Thank you. David.
Just a couple things. First, when it comes to emails, I totally agree with you that having a specific person makes a big difference. Also, as another point is I've had situations where I've had to email, let's say like Alan Gilbert and say, hey, could you forward this to financial aid because they have an answer? Could you forward this to somebody else in your department because I can't get an answer from them when I email them directly? And just seeing his name on top, all of a sudden I'll get an email in about a half an hour. So that's an issue. Emails need to be answered 24 to 48 business hours, not a thing anymore. People want answers within, I would say, half a day. The other thing.
I appreciate that desire. I do think that people are absolutely swamped at times, faculty, staff, and others. Alan is one of these true exceptions in terms of his responsiveness to anyone. I'm not as responsive as Alan, and I'm pretty responsive to people. The way I think that this list is going to change is that you don't have to email Alan. Please don't email Alan. Email this person in financial aid if you have a financial aid issue, and they will be tasked with getting back to you. And if they don't, we want to hear about it, right? Because they've agreed to have their name there, and we need to ensure that they do get back to you.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. I mean, in my office or with student government, we try to answer emails as quickly as possible. I try to answer emails within about a half hour to an hour. I know sometimes it's not possible, but we all have that one person who answers emails all the time. I have an advisor, financial aid advisor. I don't get responses from those people unless it's being sent from somebody above them. The second thing is,
go ahead quickly.
When it comes to retention, I found that people who are involved in student activities, club leaders, they don't drop out of school. They finish, they graduate. The club leaders now have not been on person. They have not been club leaders in 2019. They have not been club leaders for in-person events. Online events do not draw new people. They just draw the same people who have been here before. What's our plan for next semester to have clubs with in-person events, and how are we going to draw the people who have not been here in 2019?
Yep, it's a great question. Ron?
I can jump in. We actually already started approving in-person events for student clubs this semester. They just need to put in the request to the regular event request form. Actually, David, I think you're joining us on that team this Friday. So actually, you will be the one that will be reviewing that with the team.
Thanks, Ron. I see Mobina and Sarah Lee, and then we're going to move on in our discussion. I know that this isn't the first and only time we'll talk about enrollment issues. This is an opening and a way and an assignment for each of you to talk. Let's talk particularly about the reputation and all of the committees for this body, and we'll continue to move forward on these issues throughout the year. Mobina?
You read my mind. On the committees, I think it's great that there are these committees. I think I would love it. I hear what you're saying, emails an era if you're interested in joining one. But for these strategic sort of, committees to be successful, they have to be conceptualized from the ground up as including all constituencies, not just in consultation, but in decision-making.
I agree.
In the review process. So as long as that's there, that's sort of essential to sort of making these work. The second thing is that in terms of some of the feedback things is we're not brain surgeons. There's almost nothing that is that urgent. So I would really push back against this desire for immediate answers on the behalf of, on the part of everyone. It's like we need to calm down a bit on that and just sort of 24 hours is a reasonable expectation. Maybe part of that is that if we pump up or have some kind of information literacy courses through the library, I know they already have that, but just something like, here's how to find information on the website, presuming the website will have that information. So I think that's maybe something that can help alleviate some of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Lee?
Yeah, it's just something I want to address. I think that another thing that really deters students from coming, or from new students, to being involved on campus. I think one, the lack of like campus life and student life that we currently have. And that's changed. And I think also what David was saying, a lot of people that are student leaders now don't know what it's like to be on campus pre-COVID, which also affects the way that events are happening. And in regards to having events approved, like a lot of the things want like 6 to 8 weeks in advance before an event. Not all clubs know what's going to happen 6 to 8 weeks in advance, or things change. And so that's also really hard in getting things approved on time. And another thing, I think many communities, and this also has to do with the runaround and the not getting back and not hearing back from specific people in faculty or administration. Oh, I'm so sorry, I got a call. Sorry. I feel that a lot of communities don't feel safe. I know specifically for me within the Jewish community, Brooklyn College has a reputation of being one of the most anti-Semitic CUNY campuses in New York. And it's something that is now talked about a lot within Jewish households and communities and in high schools about not sending students to this college because Jewish students don't feel safe. And then when we do come and complain, when we do come and talk to someone in faculty, then we aren't given a direct person to come and complain to, or we're sent on the runaround, or we never hear back. And it shouldn't be honest to have to continuously advocate for ourselves and follow up with someone who should be helping us.
Good. I really appreciate you bringing that up. It is a very important issue around climate. How people feel, how welcome they feel, how included they feel in the community is extremely important in terms of recruitment. You've said it right there, Sarah Lee. And I think, we need to make clear that where there is an issue of anti-Semitism that's specific, Anthony Brown is here and he's the Chief Diversity Officer on campus, and he runs the Office of Diversity and Equity that handles and investigates these issues. Those specific issues are in some ways separate and apart from the very broad concern about climate that you're referring to, which isn't necessarily about specific issues. It's about a sense of being unwelcome. I think we need to do a lot more talking about all of these issues. So I appreciate you bringing it up. It's 5:52 though. We haven't even approved the minutes. Let's approve the minutes. Following.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Yeah. Any comments or corrections? There's been a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Following the lead of the CUNY Board of Trustees and all of its subcommittees and whatnot, the voting process can be clarified where things are non-controversial. I'll simply ask if there are no's or if there are abstentions. Are there no's to the minutes? Are there abstentions to the minutes? Great, the minutes pass. So we have a number of committee reports today. The one that has action items is Governance and Policy Committee. There are 2 matters before us. Tammy, I assume you're chair of this committee. Can you present or give a brief report? The amendments are pretty self-explanatory. We might be able to get through them. Help us out.
That would be great. So you all should have received 2 proposed amendments. The Governance and Policy Council met to discuss these, and we are in favor of these. The first amendment is amendment to the bylaws of the Brooklyn College Policy Council. There had not been any, there was nothing in the bylaws about how to amend the bylaws. So we are proposing a function for doing that. And in short, we are recommending that all amendments must be approved by the Policy Council by a 2/3 plus 1 vote and by the president for submission to the Board of Trustees. So that if we wanted to amend the bylaws, we would need to have a vote in this body. It would need to pass by 2/3 plus 1. Then it would go to the president, who could take it to the Board of Trustees. That's the first piece. I want to discuss them in tandem though, because they go hand in hand. The second proposed amendment is to the Brooklyn College Governance Plan, and that would simply ensure that the First Amendment is included in the Brooklyn College Governance Plan. So they essentially fit together. Does anyone have any questions?
They are substantively identical. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions about these 2 proposals that we will take together because they are substantively identical?
And I see that Ellie asked, if this proposal has been shared with constituencies. Ellie, the answer is yes, it has been.
One thing I will say is that the constituencies have asked for additional time when there are governance changes. I'm not sure. I don't think that it matters for the purposes of this, but just in general, where there are governance changes that are proposed at the policy council level, they would like to be consulted. This isn't referring to any particular governance body or any particular faculty, but just in general. And I think the students might appreciate that as well. Mobina?
I'm concerned about the 2/3 plus approval of the president. Policy council is supposed to be, I looked at the bylaws, it's sort of equal power to all three constituencies. 2/3 seems like, I mean, for amendments, generally 2/3 is a reasonable bar, but the approval by the president seems unwarranted as an extra, as sort of going against the idea of policy council, which is that it is sort of equal representation of all three parts. The president chairs policy council. And on a smaller note, while we're changing things, can we add some non-binary pronouns in there? So it's his, her, there. But the substantive question is, I don't get that part.
So under the governance laws of CUNY, the president has to approve everything that goes to the Board of Trustees from Brooklyn College. So this isn't meant to add an additional something. It's meant to be explicit about the way the regulations play out on this campus. Just to respond to Mobina's concern about the presidential approval, that's not unique. Anything that comes out of policy council is not a fait accompli. I have to agree to bring it to the Board of Trustees. Yadidja?
Excuse me, can I just ask a question? I missed what Mobina said about the language. I don't see the language point that you're raising, Mobina. Can you direct me to it?
I'll send it to you, Tammy.
Thanks.
Yadidja?
Didier, you're muted.
You're muted.
Okay. It does say that elsewhere in the governance plan that everything that comes from policy council has to be approved by the president. And it's exactly as uncomfortable as I feel with that. I share Mobina, but that is the Board of Trustees. That's something that we talked about in a previous occasion and really don't see a way of working around it because that's sort of mandated. So yes, in an ideal world, I guess everybody should be equal, but
for what it's worth, I'm not committed to having that.
So I'm not. Okay,
sorry,
so that's that.
Sorry, did you just let me jump in? And I'm sorry, I think one of us, it could be you, it could be me, kind of slowed down to a stop for a moment. So I thought I was not interrupting you, but apparently I was. But what I wanted to say was I'm not committed to having that provision in the amendments if there's an objection. The reality is that I have that authority, that obligation to approve things before they go to the Board of Trustees. If you want to leave it out, that's fine. I will simply have to proceed to make a decision with the authority of the seat in which I sit. So, you know, I'm fine with it either way. Go ahead.
Okay, so the last time we discussed that point many years ago, that's the conclusion we came to, that it wouldn't make much sense because the president can then turn around and say she's not sending it in anyway. So we just left that in there. In terms of the governance being 2/3 plus 1, listen, changing a governance is not the same as making policy, passing recommendations about student contact. Changing the bylaws changes the actual structure of how we work. And the reason you make it 2/3 plus 1 is so that no one group can decide to gang up on the other group. If it's a simple majority, then I can see a case where half the faculty and the entire administration, which makes a majority, decide that students don't belong in the governance at all. Ridiculous as that might sound. Therefore, to make changes in bylaws in every organization in the world, there's a very high bar, and that's a 2/3 plus 1. I have to tell you, there's another high bar which we then incorporate. In most regulations to change the bylaws, you also have to announce it and read it at 3 successive meetings of the group without any changes. Under a single, since we only meet 3 times a year, were we to include that, we'd get 0 done ever. So I think adding a 2/3 + 1 is sufficiently, it gives us the checks and balances that each of the 3 groups want to make sure that the other group doesn't get together and plot to get rid of them.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Aaron, if you could speak very briefly, and then we'll see if we can call the question.
Yeah, I wanted to make a motion to accept this with the amendment of removing the part with the president. I believe that this would matter in case the Board of Trustees decides to change their bylaws for some reason. So we shouldn't be limited by our own governance, that it should go by the president.
Is there a second on that?
There's a problem with that because it's not part of this particular motion. That's a different part of the governance plan. And that would have to go back to the governance. It's a different motion. It should go back to the governance committee to make another motion to remove that phrase from where it is in the bylaws. If you notice what Tammy sent around, Associate Provost sent around, does not include that phrase about the president.
Tony? Tony? You're muted.
Thank you. I apologize about that. I agree with you, Aditya. So everyone is aware, currently the current guidance documents, governance documents does say that the president submits it to the Board of Trustees. That's how we've been currently doing. There's been no change to that. The only change that's coming forward before this body is a 2/3 + 1 vote. To not put that in the governance plan is not being transparent about what actually occurs. And in my belief, we should be transparent that the president has the authority, whether they want to or not, to send things to the Board of Trustees. And so to be transparent, I think we should keep it in.
David?
I'm going to have to agree with everybody here. And Aaron, I would ask you to withdraw your motion. And the reason is this. We've already known from a lot of these meetings here is that we've been pulling from a lot of documents, and having all the facts in one document would be very helpful. So knowing that the president needs to approve it by just reading the governance plan is helpful. The question is, when it comes to the amendments to the bylaws, is there a reason that has to go to the Board of Trustees?
Yes, all the governance documents changes, all the governance document changes need to go to the Board of Trustees under CUNY policy.
Is what falls under that? Would an amendment to the USG Constitution fall under that? Would an amendment to the Faculty Council Constitution?
Yes. Both, in fact, in my time have gone to the Board of Trustees. Absolutely. We live in a system.
Since 1970, the Board of Trustees have taken over Brooklyn College and all governance across. You may not remember because you were not born yet. Okay, Brooklyn College used to be independent. In 1970, to give you a little history, New York City went bankrupt.
No, we don't have time for a history. You did you? We don't have time.
Quick history.
We're not going to do it.
CUNY owns us now. That's it.
No, we're part of a system, and we benefit from being part of a system sometimes, and sometimes it constrains us. This is a circumstance in which it constrains us, and we will go to the Board of Trustees with all changes to governance documents. That's part of it. All right. I'd like
to draw the motion.
Pardon? Thank you, Aaron. I do think we should call the question because it is still possible that we will get through this. Louis, did you agree? Yeah.
Yes, I'm waiting for a second.
Okay. Someone want a second?
Second.
Great. I will ask if there are objections, if there are no's to this set of amendments which we are taking together. Are there no's?
Wait. Are we voting on the amendments or are we voting to call the question?
We have called the question and we're moving forward. And
motion was to call the question. Am I missing something?
Well, we could take that time. It just seems unnecessary. Is there anyone who wants to continue discussing this other than David?
I don't want to continue discussing. I just want to understand I'm good. I just don't want to
Yeah, yeah.
understand that what
Yeah.
we're voting on.
I took a sense from the body that there was a desire not to continue to discuss it. Is there anyone who objects to calling the question? Then I'm going to say that we have called the question. We're moving forward. Now we're voting on the actual amendments, which are taken together. They are substantively identical.
You need
Are
a
there
motion?
no's? I'll take the recommendation from the committee as a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Jennifer seconds. Are there no's? Are there abstentions? Okay, they pass. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to hear reports. We have a written report from Faculty Student Relations. Thank you so much. Anybody should feel free from these various committees to write a short report and update people. We're not going to review that this time around. We again are going to deliberate in committee structure between the meetings, and we will see you all in, do we have a December meeting, Zunera? We do, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Early December. Look forward to seeing you all there. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion
to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, take care.